Good evening, folks. Silver here. Today's story follows a former avid fan of old school theatrics and the situation that led to the loss of their love for them. What could have caused this? Let's find out. Also, before we begin, only a small percentage of you that listen to these stories are actually subscribed. So, if you end up enjoying this narration, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always unsubscribe later. With that, enjoy the story. Since I was a little child, I was fascinated with old school entertainment. Ventriloquists, magicians, circus performers, puppeteers or mimes. With very little effort, they were able to open up the doors of my imagination and put me under their spell. Over time, I too lost my interest in that kind of entertainment and turned more and more to entertainment electronics. But I never really forgot about my childhood heroes, who I never stopped to admire. But one evening, my admittedly nostalgic fascination with these old arts of entertainment came to a sudden and undeniably disturbing end. I decided to visit one of the last plays of the fearless vampire killers, or Dance of the Vampires if you want to call it that. I always wanted to watch it, but only found the motivation when I heard the musical would stop being played in Germany. After an amazing show, I walked the streets of Berlin, fitting the plan that I had for the evening. I was dressed in a wine red velvet coat and a brocade shirt. I headed for an underground gothic bar I'm a regular in. I just wanted to finish the day with some beers and in company of like-minded people. Taking the main streets or public transportation didn't seem to be the right choice for that evening. The weather was fine, not too cold, and the sun still stood high enough in the coloured sky fittingly blood red. In one of those back alleys, I noticed a bunch of teenagers standing and an old man giggling. I'm a little paranoid in these kind of situations, so I prepared to intervene if it would have come to show that the old man was being picked on or harassed. I slowly walked towards the group and, to my amazement, found that there was no kind of harassment at all, but entertainment by the old man. The guy swayed around a wooden puppet on strings, let her do some tricks and told dirty jokes through the wooden doll. I just couldn't bring myself to walk away. I waited and watched the performance for several minutes, fascinated by the dexterity and precision of the old man handling the puppet. Besides his enormous talent, the old man seemed to be distant. He didn't seem to be paying any attention at all, and his expressionless face stared into space the whole time. I figured that, to be that good with the puppet and ventriloquism, he must have been doing it for decades now. So it was nothing special to him anymore, and he didn't really need to pay any attention at all. Routine and organizational blindness set in, and the repetition of the same things every day all day long surely had him numbed by then. Even though I kind of felt sad for the old man, I grinned broadly at the time. The jokes were often pretty inappropriate, but consisted of really accurate observations of society, which may have been his way to show his discontent for the people he met as a street performer over all these years. The tricks and stunts continued for around 10 more minutes, until the puppet grabbed a handkerchief out the old man's pocket, spread it out in front of itself, and took a bow and thanked the people for the attention before wishing a good evening to everyone. Some of the teenagers grabbed some change from their pockets and placed money on the handkerchief, while laughingly complimenting the old man. I too wanted to pay the puppeteer. In my eyes, that much talent and dexterity must not go unseen and unrewarded. While I was rummaging through my change, the puppet watched the teenagers carry on their way. I didn't think they would give some money for real. Normally these pricks aren't good for anything besides ridicule and malice. I lifted my head, looked at the puppet, and then watched the teenagers as well. Yeah, sometimes miracles really seem to happen, and I prefer being surprised positively rather than the other way. I laid my eyes on the puppet again, squat down, and looked at her workmanship. It was clearly very old, maybe even to be considered an antique. The wood was split up on many parts, and the paint was chipped everywhere too. It really looked worse for wear. "You're immensely talented. You know that, right?" I asked, and out of curiosity tried to touch the puppet's hand. Immediately I got slapped by the wooden doll. "Hands off, buddy! Who told you may touch me, huh?" The puppet snarled. I didn't think much of it. The puppet was old, and the old man's substance seemed to depend on it. I apologized and put €3 on the handkerchief. "Why are you sitting in the streets? With that talent of yours, you could easily perform at theatres or in entertainment in general." "I like it here. The streets show me the real people, not all the dressed up snobs with their fancy wardrobe and opera tickets thinking that they're better than everyone else." "I see. Nevertheless, You're very talented. My compliments. At this moment, I realized that I talked to the doll the whole time, instead of the old man. But the old man didn't communicate directly to me as well. You can talk to me without that doll, I offered politely. Or don't you want to break character? No, he can't, the puppet replied. But why? That's none of your goddamn business, buddy. I struggled not to get angry. The puppet's answer was as rude as the jokes it told some minutes ago. I decided to carry on my way, bowed down, wished a good evening, and went on without shedding any further thought about the puppeteer. Some 100 meters away, I came to an intersection as I looked left and right to be sure about the traffic. My heart took a dive. On the opposite side of the street, on the left, stood the old puppeteer. Again, he showed the same tricks and stunts, told the same jokes, but how on earth did he get there before I could? I may have just been walking slowly, but the old man didn't seem to be light on his feet. I just couldn't take my eyes off him and his puppet as I was walking slowly further. Even though we were at least 40 to 50 meters apart, I wanted to get as far away as fast as possible. At the exact moment I was to walk around a corner and lose sight of the old puppeteer, his doll's head turned right at me, while the old man still had that absent, expressionless look on his face. His puppet seemed to stare me down. My breath stopped for a moment due to the startle. For a fraction of a second, I was petrified. Over the remainder of my way, I turned around on a regular basis, always on high alert. I had the feeling that the puppet's eyes were on me the whole time, but no matter how many times I looked around, how much my head was turning in every direction, and how much I tried to register anything and everything around me, I didn't see the puppeteer again. It was only at the club where I was able to shut down and tried to lay down the events as simple deja vu. But my shivering hands told a very different story. The barkeeper asked several times if I was alright, since she thought I looked pretty shaken, but she took my word for it as I told her that I just had a very stressful day. Slowly but surely, the incident with the old man fell off of me. The later it got, the more relaxed I became, and in the end, I was able to enjoy the music, drinks, and company as if nothing had ever happened. Around 4 a.m., I went on my way home. Being in a good mood again, I strolled through the streets of Berlin, heading towards Central Station. The temperatures had fallen low enough to make breathing visible. Not many people were still around, and the city itself seemed pretty quiet. Not far away from Central Station, however, I got that feeling of being watched again. I turned to all sides, nearly panicking. I wanted to reassure myself that it was just a trick played by my subconscious. But behind a tree, somewhere around 100 meters in the distance, someone was standing. I couldn't make out for sure who or what was standing there without any movement at all, but I knew it was the puppeteer, and he was standing directly in my way. No chance I meet that creep again, I thought to myself, and turned into a back alley to get around the old man and return to my route behind him. My legs were shaking due to more than just the cold air. I had trouble keeping up my pace. Some 100 meters later, I wanted to turn again towards Central Station, and again, I found myself standing right in front of the old man. Standing only 10 meters away, his puppet's eyes were staring again right at me. My breath stopped. All of my senses screamed havoc. I wanted to run and scream. Every muscle in my body was tensed up, and I shivered. My heart beat faster than I ever thought it could. It was pounding so hard against my chest that I feared it might jump out of my body at any moment. "Evening, buddy," the puppet said. I only nodded, shivering. Should I have tried to say something? I wouldn't have been able to get out a single proper word. "Are you cold? You tremble like an aspen leaf." I didn't know what that was all about. Was that supposed to be a serious question? Or was it part of a disgusting kind of game? The whole thing stank to high heaven. Carefully, I tried to make my body move slowly and ordinarily. My hands and arms reluctantly followed, but I was able to grab the knife at my belt. "Oh look, you were pretty talkative back then. What is it left you speechless now?" It really started to annoy me that the old man only talked through the puppet. Having a distinctive style is one thing, but that made the whole situation only 1,000 times more menacing. My body started to prepare for a fight. I didn't seem to be able to escape him, with flight being no option. Confrontation was all that's left. I took a deep breath as I was about to say something. The puppet cut me off right away. "Don't even try, buddy. You wouldn't sound threatening at all right now. You shiver way too much for that." The old man let the puppet walk up and down in front of me, like a CEO at a presentation of sorts, still staring in space. "What the fuck do you want from me?" "Nothing at all, buddy. I just want to talk." "Well, talk to me yourself instead of using that damn puppet." Of course, the puppet replied, "I already do." "Or who do you think the puppet is?" I swear, my heart skipped several beats. My breath stopped and I felt a sudden weakness running through me, just as if every muscle in my body stopped working. My eyes widened, and for the first time, I looked close enough to see the visible breath streaming into the cold air from the puppet's mouth. Not the old puppeteer, but the puppet itself was breathing. Laughing, it pulled down its strings from the old man's hands, who sunk to the ground like a towel or bedsheet. He deflated, like he had not a single muscle or bone in his body. My legs gave up, and I fell to the ground, unable to scream due to sheer terror. Hitting the asphalt must have sent an adrenaline rush through my body. I jumped back up, ripped apart my coat in the process, since my feet were rested on it, and ran. Or more honestly, stumbled, at least the first couple of meters, as fast as I possibly could. My lungs hurt. My legs were shivering and weak, giving in every couple of steps. But as long as I was able to hear that puppet's laugh, I didn't stop or let alone turn around. All I could think of was getting to the central station, into the light and into the line of sight of the police station security cams. I threw myself into a corner and huddled with my knife in my hand, which I held so tight that my muscles cramped, and I had problems letting it go when the sun rose, and more people arrived at the station. On the platform, I always stood next to other people, never by myself, and even on the train itself, I preferred the more crowded floor. It was only as my train finally left Central Station that I got a little more calm, and watched the puppeteer entertaining others with the same tricks and the same jokes through the window. And I stared into the wooden puppet's eyes for the last time. I never went to Berlin again since.